Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Money-ish Show this week, and I got an incredible guest on the show for you named Anthony Trucks, former NFL football player of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who just won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. You got Pittsburgh Steelers as well.
Here's what I do. It's
I lost the second one.
Bucks, Redskins, Steelers. BRS. Bucks, Redskins.
Redskins.
Steelers.
There you go. You ready, Bruce? Sorry, dude.
BRS works.
Redskins. I can't believe I did that. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome back to the Money-ish Show. Got an incredible guest this week on the show. Anthony Trucks flew in today, flying out just a little bit. Former NFL football player, played for the Steelers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as well as the Redskins. Was on American Ninja Warrior 3 times. Was the first NFL player to ever hit that buzzer on the American Ninja. You know, the show that they do all those weird obstacles that I feel like I could do but never do one of them. Also written a book called Identity Shift, which is his brand. Has a very, very unique background of where he came up as a child. I want to break this down with you today on the show. I want to explain to you, how do you have an identity shift in your business and why it's important to you. We're going to go through this today on the show with you. On that note, Anthony Trucks, thanks for coming on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Well done. Good intro.
Yeah, good intro.
Got
good
it.
intro. You guys didn't know this, but it took us 3 times, so I messed it up twice. So yeah, good intro, Drew.
Now they know.
Yeah, now they know. So I'm full disclosure, man. You know everything. And dude, I've had such a great time connecting with you. Before the show.
Me too.
And I love connecting people that have core values, not just in their business. Like everybody has core values in their business, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I always look for the core values just as a human. Like what are those real values that you have as a human, right? And I've had a great time connecting with you. And you brought your son.
Yep.
On a little traveling tour here with you. And a big dad supporter. At least we're trying to sell him on. Supporting you big time. I think like he's really into video games mainly right now.
Yeah, they all are. Even my daughter's into them nowadays.
So, dude, I want to dive this into you a little bit of it. For first, you've been on a little traveling tour.
Yeah.
And I think we're your last stop.
Last stop on the way home. I get to sleep in my own bed this
Tonight,
evening.
right?
Looking forward to it.
What's that? You got to or you need to?
We need to.
You're going to.
But you can't keep doing that, though.
And it was just like the Letterman, man. They could talk from the crowd. Sometimes it happens.
Apparently they do.
But, okay, so where did you go on the tour?
So when I started playing the game, I had a cool agent, and I've always been blessed to have that. When I got done playing the game, I was still in contact with him. He didn't drop me like some guys do.
Yeah.
And he started this football camp where every year he brings out current and former players, NFL players, and has them pretty much serve the kids.
Yeah.
So we, I think, man, this year was the biggest group yet. It's my 12th year straight.
Wow.
I think it was 400, like 12-ish kids or something like that. And so.
What age group?
I believe it's like 7 years up to like 13, 14,
7,
before high school.
Okay.
And then we just pretty much, we don't just teach them football. A lot of it's life.
Yeah,
like a lot of it's great guys. We do something called Praise of the Pros afterwards. We sign autographs, do radio stuff. So a lot of cool things, but it's all a matter of giving these kids the behind-the-scenes intangibles. So we started there. We flew out from my home in California. We're there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Went down to Dean Graciosi's studio in Phoenix. Did a one-day little thing with him and Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of cool people. And then flew back to Colorado.
Okay.
And then this morning flew here.
Okay.
And from here we fly back home.
Awesome, man. It's a long little trip there. I know how it feels to travel and not sleep in your bed, and it gets old.
It gets old, man. I want to go home.
After a while, man. I want to go home.
home.
Real quick, I want to tell me about football for a second. Obviously, it's been a big part of your life.
Yeah.
You know, football. Played for the Oregon Ducks.
Did.
And then went off to the NFL and played on these different teams. One just question I want to kind of hit with you on this is like, you kind of mentioned it a while ago. To me, it's amazing how much parallels there are between sports and life.
Oh yeah.
To me, it's like, dude, these like run like side by side.
Always do.
The parallels of sports, and not just football, but tons of sports. I think football is one of those that has to me, playing it had a ton of parallels later on in life. Wrestling, I think, has a ton of parallels of life. Do you see that as you go out and train, talk to these kids and so forth? You talked about life in general with them.
Yeah, it's always life. It's like football is a microcosm of the entire world, right?
It really is.
Because there's different personalities. It's not like basketball, a bunch of tall, mostly African American men, right? Or it's going to be, soccer, and it's a bunch of like small soccer players. You have the big corn-fed guys from the Midwest. You got the little guys, the speedsters from the Texas and the Florida. So you got all these personalities. You then have multiple different coaches. You have different environments, whether it's strength training and speed training. So there's always adaptations, and you also have different opinions on different things. Or you have, on one defense, you have, all these different positions that do different things. The D line stops the run. The linebackers are doing run and pass. The DBs do the pass, and it's just. So I like it. You have to learn how to navigate to be a good team. To win a game or win a championship, you have to work well together. And heck yeah, like life-wise, you have these intangibles that I don't think you would get outside of either the military or just really being dialed in your career. But most people, when they're met with problems, they will leave the job or leave a situation. So when you have to be forced to stay in it, you learn just by like sheer survival almost. Like you have to. So it's funny you say it because in my household, we're all athletes. My wife still competes in masters track.
Wow.
All my kids do sports. I do. But the reality is I, as a family, we don't watch many sports.
Interesting.
So not that we're against watching it, but I'm not going to clear my weekend to prepare for one game on a Sunday and then like that was it. I'm real big on like the sport will teach you so much as a human, but in the time when you can build your life, you probably shouldn't spend the entire weekend for a few hours of a game. Like you can create something more. So it's that weird internal balance of like, love sports to play, but don't waste your entire life being wrapped in it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I just say there's so many parallels inside of it, and one of the big ones, especially in football, is learning how to play with a team.
Oh, big.
There's so many, and when you get in corporations, we were talking about earlier, like the 12 different kind of teams you kind of work with right now in your current corporation. There's so many facets of the sports that tie into it. Last question I ask you on sports, and now that you have kids, I'm gonna bring this question up to you. Today's culture, there's a huge everybody wins society inside of sports. What's your viewpoint?
I hate it, man.
You do hate it?
We're making our kids weak, dude. Like there's something to the ability to not rob your kids of their hardships.
Yeah.
Right? So there's the aspect of, I think parents want the kids to have it all and be like, I want my kids to be way above a lifestyle that I was, but they have to have their own version of hard.
Yeah.
And so like for example, sports taught me how to hear what's being said, not how it's being said, right? Like, so when you talk to a person, like say, hey, you're not doing a good job, you need to do a little bit better. Like, they shut down nowadays. The kids shut down. It's like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, you need to be able to take the insight, understand, and be better, and press on. In sports, you have to learn that.
Right.
Coach might mother F you up and down the field because of something you did wrong, but you can't take it as he doesn't like you. You have to take what he's saying, not how.
Yeah.
And so, man, I'm not big in the participation trophies. Like, I'm not cool. And our family, the kids know that too. Like, I won't say to the parents, but I'm like, man, just because you showed up doesn't mean you get what you want.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's taken away that the hard life lessons that people, everybody in life is going to go through hard lessons, especially as an adult, right? And to me, it's like when you take that away from the kid, I can imagine now facing adulthood, not having to go through losses, failures, what it feels like to get our butts kicked in a game, and then we didn't get Dairy Queen afterwards because we didn't win. We sucked. You only got Dairy Queen if you won that game. Well. And taking that away is like, then to me, you're taking away life lessons that are taught in sports, and then not putting them out so that when you get in the world, they can face them. And it's a unique, man. There's a cool phrase that I heard that I feel like is happening right now that I'm buying into pretty big on is, and I think I got this from Joe Rogan. He said, tough times create tough men. Tough men create easy times.
It's a cycle.
Easy times create easy men.
Yeah.
Easy men create tough times. It's just a big cycle.
He summed something up that I've been telling my wife for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think there's a generational situation that happens where like one generation does really well and they make it easy. And so these kids don't have strength, so their kids don't have the same thing, so they get this poor bucket and they do poorly. And their kids like, I don't want to be poor anymore, so they do better. And it's this weird cycle. I 100% agree with it, man. It's a very interesting dynamic. He summed it up in a couple sentences, some I thought for a lot of years.
Dude, that is what I've been feeling. Like you said, I had this like thought, what is going on? And when I heard him say, I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly and what's kind of happening. And now we have this, where I brought it up because it kind of ties into the participation trophies where it's like, well, easy men create easy times. It's like, oh, we're all winners. And it's like, no, bro. And the thing about it is in business, right? Now you're in business.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how hard business is.
Very.
Right? And knowing how to persevere, knowing how it feels to lose, and then say, okay, how do I adjust? How do I pivot? How do I take this loss and move forward, right? And most of the times when and I know you're a public speaker as well, a lot of times I've always felt when I was speaking, training, coaching, whatever it is, a lot of times I'm talking about my failures as the example, not all my successes. No. We're teaching through failures that we went through, not through the successes that we went through.
It's a great quote. I have no idea where it came from, but I've used it for years.
We'll claim it then.
I should, but it's a smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor.
Yeah, a smooth sea makes not a skilled sailor.
And it's like obviously an older quote from someone, but essentially like if you're a guy and you want to learn to handle rough seas, you can't only be on smooth seas.
Yeah.
You got to navigate hardships. And so Like I'm real big on like don't rob the kids that are hardships in business. Like all these things you handle at a baseline that are difficult.
Yeah.
When you get to the back end, a farther piece, right? You know, future pace. When you have more problems, you have more responsibilities.
Right.
So if you shut down later, it's way worse than falling apart and having problems early.
Right.
So have the rough seas early, handle them early, so later on when you get that opportunity, you can handle it. Because it doesn't get any easier, you just get stronger.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I want to talk about identity shift, and I think to really get into identity shift, which is what your training that you do is, then we got to back up and talk about childhood.
Yeah.
Because to me, as I kind of went through your childhood with you, no wonder you wrote this. Like you're the perfect example of kind of what this book represents, which is why it ties so deeply into you. Talk to us a little bit about childhood growing up into maybe to got into college era. What was it like?
So it wasn't fun. That's I guess the nature of it. No, I started life where, there's always the experience of like I didn't matter, I wasn't good enough. We have that naturally as humans, whether, our parents didn't show up, coaches didn't do stuff, we had that. But it's usually later. Usually it's going to be in your teen years, you start entering the world, whereas for me, it started at 3. So mom, I had myself, 3 siblings, they're all younger than me. She essentially just said, I don't want my kids anymore, and put us into the foster care system in the San Francisco Bay Area in California. And so the beginning of my whole memory cycle in life was being given away. And so in that situation, it's an immediate feeling of not wanted, less than, and you don't feel like you matter.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I was put into these homes, and at the time, they weren't good homes. I'm what is considered back then a paycheck, and a paycheck means as long as I don't die, you get a paycheck and life goes on.
People basically took kids as a paycheck. Like, well, if I have these 5 kids, I get government checks.
Government checks.
Boom, 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 boom.
As long as they don't die,
Yep.
they survive. Now, they didn't treat us well, though. There's families that, I would legitimately, I would be forced to chase chickens in a coop, and if I caught a chicken, I would earn a meal, and if I didn't, I didn't eat.
No way.
And I would actually, at night, I remember that same house, I would sneak out and try to get food because I'm hungry, and if I got caught, I got beat in the middle of the night.
Jeez.
One family put me in a shopping cart, would push me down a hill towards moving traffic, it was funny. It was very weird. I'd fall out, they put me back in, do it again. And the one that really sets with me, the worst, it's one where I was out in front of the house, and there was a brother who was the family's real child, and I was a foster kid, and he put me in the front and forced me to lick the bottom of neighbor kids' shoes. And that metally blood taste, still kind of sits there. So that was from 3 to 6.
That's crazy, man, because, again, growing up just as a foster child is a unique, there's some stats out there that maybe we can bring up in a little bit that you know. There's that side of it, but then it's I think from the outside, right, not being a foster kid, we just understand what foster kids like that go through, because there was, and I don't know if it still is or not, but I know there was a time where it was just about a paycheck. And not all of them. I'm not saying 100% of foster parents are like this.
No.
But there's this process where it's hey, get this paycheck if you take these kids. And it's not about loving the kids and trying to train and develop and nurture the kids that actually need more love, attention, support, help than just an average kid does, right? In my opinion, this is my opinion.
They do need it more, you're right.
And because they go through this thing of abandonment and wait, what happened here in my life? And not only do they not get more, they don't even get the same, and a lot of times they get freaking less.
Way less.
Way less. And then you deal with this crap like this right here that goes on.
And the thing is, back then it was 1986. There wasn't, social media, there's no phones.
Yeah.
And as kids, what people don't realize is I want to go back to my parents. Even if my parents aren't that good for me, there's an attachment there.
There's something that's just there that you.
So what we do is we make up these stories because our logic is, well, if I'm bad enough or something happens, they'll take me back home. It's never the case. Legally, it could happen, but I'm a kid. 6 years old. I don't know that. And so, you act up. So now, not only are you not feeling good, you're acting up, and then the brunt of it is you get more trouble, you get beat, all these different things happen. It's just a vicious cycle, man.
It's crazy, man. Not that I want to, but then I don't want to make you go back there. But I would love to off camera sit down and just hear what that was like, because I like learning, I like understanding it, and the more you know about anything, the more you can understand and relate to it. And I like to know more about that process and what it looks like. But you go through this kind of foster from 3 to 6. You go through this in different homes, and at 6 you get into a home. Yeah,
6 is it's the same situation. It's a new foster home. As far as I know, at that time, at 6 years old, it's a foster home. The dynamic is it's the first white family I'm with.
Okay.
So first time I'm in this dynamic where I don't even know where I stand or where I fit. Nice people. The foster dad wasn't the best person, but I had a brother that was cool. I had a couple sisters now, and I had a mom who was like, she was awesome.
Yeah.
So much so, like, the things I would do to try to go home, like, didn't phase her. Like, she didn't get mad, she wouldn't hit me, none of that
Didn't let
stuff.
it bother her.
Foster dad did, though. He was like a drunk, and like, I remember, like, the first time I have a memory of him is him throwing me across the room, me hitting my head on this wooden edge of the bed, and then him, like, forced me not to say a word to anybody about it. Like, I just remember, like, having this weird dark, like, what's he gonna do to me if I do say something? Because my experience is, the past, it's normal to get beat and hit. And so, but I also remember the last memory of him in the house was like, my mom and him were fighting in the kitchen, and like she slipped on a banana peel and went down to one knee, and like he just cold cocks her across her face with a right.
Jeez.
It just wasn't a good guy. And so, like, that was a family, and it was all white, very poor. I mean, like, literally roaches in the garage, mice in the pantry. There's always that noise in the walls in the middle of the night, you know, just always. And that was our upbringing, man. But I didn't know, I guess, much different. Like, it's just kind of what we dealt with. My mom eventually divorced him, remarried another guy, had a couple more kids. Very, very good guy. He's only 12 years older than me, though.
Yeah.
So my dad, the dynamic, it's more of like a buddy than it is like pops, you know. And not that a bad thing. He's very supportive. But yeah, that wasn't like the thing that really locked me in. It wasn't until I got adopted at 14 by the same family that life kind of, it gave me a little more stability. Because up to this point, I guess like instability was my consistency. Not like every day having no idea if this is really the home I'm gonna be in tomorrow. Because they don't tell you is in foster care, there's no like warning. They just pull up with a car, you get in the car and they take you somewhere else. So imagine every day was worse as it got better. My mom and dad got a better job, things would get good. There's this fear inside of like, I don't wanna have more good because then this good will be gone. So I actually was kind of standoffish. Oddly, it's followed me into adulthood, but I've processed it a lot more to where now I'm aware it's there, but I don't let that run me in any way. And in fact, when I feel it pop up, I go, we're not having that, and I go and do something really cool, or I want to show up, you know. But yeah, that definitely was a big barrier, is this whole thing of like, man, if it gets good, it's gonna be gone. Don't let it get good. And then self-sabotage pops in, all those kind of things too.
Sure. And then of course that goes with you through teenage years and a young adult and then adult as well.
Yeah, for sure.
That's gonna be part of your life that you're going through. You go through this phase of going through foster care and then from 6 to 14, you were still in foster care, but then at 14 you get adopted.
Got adopted.
Unique situation, your mom kind of had still parental control to a certain degree. Parental rights. And literally could override certain things that you could or could not do, even though you lived actually, until you were adopted. You lived within their family and you were part of their family, but she could still control certain things, which is why you never played football until you were 14. Oh, was it any sports?
No, I didn't play any sports.
Any sports? And
Nothing
she just didn't
organized.
want you to go play sports?
She's what's called a pathological liar, so she would make up statements and fully believe them. And so like she at one point blamed my foster family that I was with for me being in foster care. Is it like the logic of it is it's unsound, right? So this was the dynamic of the relationship we had for a lot of years. She's telling me after every visitation she'd missed, and she missed all of them, she would tell me, wait by the window, pack a bag, I'm gonna come pick you up at 8 o'clock. I remember every night I would sit there and the car would drive up, and this would never be her, and I would just cry myself to sleep. I was wet in the bed every night that would happen to like 14 years old. Because
in your brain, again, you're thinking, no matter, kind of go to what you said a while ago, even if you try to even act out to be bad so that maybe you get to go back home, and then here you have this false sense of hope.
Over and over and over.
That's there. This is like straight out of a movie is how I feel like right now. Like, you see this sometimes in movies. And yours was like not a movie, it was real life. You were sitting there hoping, oh, mom said she's gonna come, and I'm ready to go as soon as mom gets here. And then behind the scenes, you have this foster parents that were trying to provide, take care to a certain degree.
Trying to adopt me,
trying to adopt you through the process. At 14, you finally get adopted.
Well, the thing is, I had to go to court and actually stand up in front of a judge, in front of my mom, and look my real mom in her eyes and say, I no longer want you to be my mom anymore. So it wasn't emancipation per se, but it was like now I'm like a ward of the state actually, and there's no parental rights and control, and so I could finally be adopted because the family had been trying to adopt me for like 6 of the 8 years. It wasn't like this late thing.
They couldn't because your mom was kind of blocking it?
Yeah, parental rights blocks the whole process. Because she has the right to not let me be adopted.
So finally at 14,
she had no control.
She had no control, and as long as you guys went through the court process, there's a way you could get adopted. So at 14, you finally get adopted. But dude, you have then at 14 years old standing in front of a judge in a courtroom, which is already freaking weird and stressful, and
I remember all that.
And sweaty, you're like nervous, and then you got to look at your mom and say, hey, at your biological mother, and say, I no longer want to be you as my mother.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't even imagine that process. I can't even imagine the emotional side of what
tough,
that's
man.
like, dude. It's just insane. You finally get adopted at 14 from this family and grow up in this, from this family is where you go to college and so forth. I want to ask you one question, if I can, maybe, which is a question about you're African American. You grew up in an all-white family. Stepdad, if you will, stepmom, let's just say, and then adopted, but then
you got half siblings.
Half 5 brothers and sisters at the time?
And that family was 5. Yeah.
There's 5 plus you is 6, right? So there's 5 all-white stepbrothers and sisters, if you will.
Yeah.
And you grew up the one black kid. All 6, you know.
Well, I was only a black kid in my elementary school.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what was that like? What was that feeling? I want to relate and understand. What was that like going through that?
It's I guess a good word is unsettling. It's unsettled, you know. And this is why identity was a really big thing for me, because I never understood who I was.
Interesting.
Like I was at a school where if you look at the pictures of me and my classmates, some of my best friends I've known for 30 years. Like we've all still been. It's me, the one like dark guy in the background.
Yeah,
that float,
literally like a movie where it's like, oh,
quite literally.
Yeah, they have somebody as a joke, like the token
guy.
Yeah.
Token
but you
underwear,
actually
man.
were
the token.
growing up. You were it.
Yeah, there was nobody there wasn't much diversity in the town, and so I never really understood who I was, man. And then worse, my siblings, my 3 half siblings, they have a different dad. So I'm half white and half black.
Right.
They're half white, half Indonesian.
Yeah.
So like I don't even have like a father figure or an uncle or anybody I know. My dad was never even present at any point in time during my upbringing. And so like complete lack of a sense of like who I am.
I completely can understand that side of it, is the identity side.
Yeah.
Like, not only do you have all the other stuff that's going on around you, like we just talked about, but then you have this one black, all white, and there has to be a massive identity struggling of who the heck am I?
Yeah, I'm a foster kid.
Why am I here? Like, it's so freaking weird.
And a lot of it was like I didn't have an outlet because there wasn't social. There was no other kids I knew, so I had no one to connect with and feel like I was normalized. So I didn't have I didn't have contact with my siblings, my actual half siblings. I felt ashamed sharing with the rest of the kids at the school like my true dynamic of my family. So like you never feel like you can express or talk or share, and so it's like there's always a little darkness hiding inside you feel is bad. And couple that with the aspect of my own mom didn't want me, and that followed me for a lot of years.
Sure, of course.
So it's just it's a continuous, it was a battle, man. Funny thing is, when you're in the middle of it at that age, you just like Bane talks about like I was born in the dark.
I was born in the darkness.
I was born into that.
Wow.
I was so normalized to the crazy that the abnormalness of it, we'll call it, was just like a normalcy. And it wasn't fun, it wasn't enjoyable, but I really that was my rough sea. I had a really rough sea. So in the midst of it, didn't really notice it, but in hindsight, I'm like, oof, it's a lot going on, man.
Lot to unpack on that right there. Last little question here, gonna move to the brand, of course, identity, which is genius behind it, but just on a kind of a funny note, it obviously reminds probably a lot of the viewers about Blindside. The
very
movie.
similar.
So when you watched the movie, which I'm sorry you saw, of course, NFL and so forth, what was your thoughts on oh my God, this is a mirror?
And funny, somebody told me like, oh, this movie exists, it's kind of similar, and then come to find like genuinely it's actually similar. I mean, I didn't get picked up on the side of a road, in like in my teenage years like he did or anything, but no, it was very similar in terms of like the black kid, all white family, and got progressed to the
probably the only difference was he was in a actually wealthy
family. I wasn't in a wealthy family,
and you were still with cockroaches and
all that
mice and so forth. Man. But there's obviously a lot of like. I couldn't imagine watching that from your standpoint, thinking, "Holy shit, this is like me."
This is my story.
This is my story. Someone stole it. Inside of it, man. So, okay, let's move on to identity shift. Okay,
let's do it.
So, this book is brand new. It's not even released yet.
No.
This actually, you just gave me your last copy.
Last copy I have.
It's called right here. It says literally "not for sale" on it. You gave me your last copy here. Identity shift. So first, I want to talk about number one. If they want a copy of the book. Where can they get a copy of this book at right now? Before you even dive into it.
IdentityShiftBook.com.
Identity Shift, name of the book, and then IdentityShiftBook.com.
And then use the code MIS, and they'll get that. They'll get the audiobook, digital book, and the workbook for free.
All digital audio workbook and the book for free. MIS just stands for Money Is Show. Their little coupon, if you will. And then Anthony here will give you a book, digital audio, and the workbook that goes inside of it.
You got to buy the book first, but they'll get the audio book, digital book, and the workbook after.
Okay, so what I want to talk about is obviously now the reason I wanted to go through your childhood is it makes so much sense with your brand, which is identity. That word is kind of stuck with you throughout obviously your childhood, but now actually you're using that right now as part of your brand.
Yeah, it's 100%. because it progresses well past the childhood years. But it's one of those things where I lived a life up and down and found that the core piece of what allowed me to not be a statistic. So 75% of any prison inmates in America have spent time in foster care.
That's insane.
Half the homeless population, because most kids age out in the families. If it's a paycheck, kick them out.
Because the paycheck's over.
It's over. So they go. A lot of our homeless population has spent time in foster care. Like less than 1% of us ever graduate college. And it's funny is we actually have programs that will fund our college, but I think a lot of the thing is when you have the world like just beat you up like that, there's a resentment, and we go out into the world and we want retribution.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it was a long journey, but in this whole kind of process, I realized like, man, there's something that I've been doing in a weird, almost accidental way that allowed me to progress through, and I found over time that was just I understood how to progress to the next level, not by knowing things, but becoming the individual that would do or have the thing I wanted. So like football, most people know this, my first year of football, I was horrible.
Like, when you say first year, you're talking about at 14 or first year of college?
First year of football, 14.
Okay, 14,
yeah, I was trash, man.
Of course.
Because think about it, I'm 14 and my classmates and teammates, they're all like been playing 4, 5, 6 years.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm horrible. And for a couple of years I was bad and I checked out, like I don't want to do this anymore. And then I had this moment where I kind of like snapped to it, and the question I asked, like, what does a great football player do? Simple conversation in my head, and like so I started to find a way to not just try to do those things, but the progression turned into I was a great football player at the end of the process. And then when I wanted to be great in college, I wanted to be this great starter. My true sophomore year started, but the conversation was, what does a great, starting college athlete do who's just getting here for the second year? What does he? So I would look at those things, and after a while, I was like, I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great coach. I want to be a great husband. And that question led me to more than I thought it would. And then when I realized years later, when somebody finally pointed out what it was, I was like, oh. So I kind of went back and went, oh, this has been a thread. And somehow inherently I navigated it that got me out of the odds I was in. I've applied to parenting, relationship, to business, but it's a human concept. And so for me, it's been this, it's one of those things where like I don't like the life that I experienced, but I appreciate all of it. Yeah. Because it's led to not only, I believe, a really strong sailor, but also the ability to go on deck and be like, hey, I'm gonna show you how to do the same thing for your own ship.
Talk to me about identity shift, because I want to make sure that the audience understands this. You talk about identity shift, and part of it's because we went through just a piece of your childhood, but then there's high school and college, and it keeps going. Yeah. And if I understand it right, kind of the reason you went with identity shift in the book is because that was your life. You are always having to kind of shift your identity to a certain point from the time you were 3 and you got picked up in a car and it's like, okay, see you later. When you went to, your mom kind of gave you up and went to foster care, all the way through the process. It's constantly kind of shifting your identity. Yeah. So break that down for us. When you talk about identity shift, what does that mean?
So you have an identity. It's comprised of 6 core pieces, right?
So everybody
has it. Everybody has this. It's actually like you can look at a Venn diagram kind of picture. We don't got to go into it deep, but just realize there are components that are like the levers you can pull, buttons you can push. And no matter who you are, I can actually unpack it and show you like who you are. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Off the top of your head, do you know what the 6?
Yeah, it's beliefs. So think of it like beliefs at the top, thoughts, and then actions, and there's overlaps. Mindset, habits, and ego. So my beliefs are the beliefs in line with the identity that has what I want, right? Okay. Then the thoughts. If the thoughts are positive in alignment, it's even better, right? We talked about subconscious and conscious thoughts. In between those two is what the mindset is. And the mindset's kind of like my mental in motion, is the way I look at it. Most people go, oh, mindset, I just need that. Yeah, but what if you believe you're supposed to do this thing, but in the back of your head you continuously question yourself. Am I good enough? Should I do it? I'm just a foster kid. How do I do this, right? Right. And so what happens is some people will live with this heavy belief they show to the world, but this backside thought messing them up, so their mindset and motion is always messed up, so they can't progress anything. Then on top of that, you can have great thoughts and have great beliefs, right? But if you do nothing with them, you sit on the couch all day, nothing happens. So action's big. But actions is not habits. Actions are the things you do that are like jumping off the cliff. That scared the crap out of, quit the job, start the business, ask that girl on a date, the big actions that are like, catalyst moments that do something big. Most people, if they don't have the belief and the mindset and the thoughts, they don't even take the action, right? So there's the action piece, but between actions and thoughts is also another piece. So if I have this action I know I'm supposed to take and I think about I should do this consistently, after habits float in. So I want to get in shape. I know I'm supposed to work out. And I tell myself I should every day, but then I don't, so my habits are weak. Or I don't make the cold calls, or I don't show up to meetings on time with my team, or maybe I don't even coach my team consistently, right? Or I whatever it may be. If I don't do something at a habitual level, I can't become anything.
Okay.
Now the problem here is most people go, oh, just put some habits in place. Yeah. But the thing is, no one's thinking about the beliefs, the thoughts, the actions of the identity you want to become. So we borrow other people's habits. So you borrow these habits, and all of a sudden you get 5 years on the road and go, why am I such a horrible husband? Well, because you follow Bill's habits, and Bill doesn't care about his wife and doesn't care about his kids. So no wonder why you're like Bill, right? And the last piece, which I personally think is the most important, is between beliefs and actions. If I believe I'm supposed to do something, like purpose on the planet, whatever it may be, and there's an action set to it, and I don't take it, I lose a sense of pride. Like if I'm supposed to do something, I have a morning routine. If I don't do the morning routine, when I get into calls later, I feel incongruent. I don't have that pride because I didn't take the action I believed I should. But if I do take it, I'll punch my chest, man, I feel good about myself, you know?
Right.
So that's why when people, they do hard things, they know they should, they feel great. It's like CrossFitters talk about CrossFit all day. I believe I should do it. It's gonna be great for me. I take the action, so I do CrossFit, I'm amazing, right? And people make fun of them, but there's a different sense of pride and ego that we do want as humans. And you don't have to, you don't have to borrow it somewhere, and you also have to earn it. So when I look at the components of an identity, the big thing is some people think, I'm just gonna work on the big actions. Yeah, but if you don't work on beliefs and thoughts, you have no mindset. So it's like big actions will only do a little bit for you. Or man, I gotta work my beliefs. Great, work on your beliefs, but then you didn't do anything to anchor them down, so you have no pride, right? So all these things are all collective. And I kind of explain to people, like if you took it and put a propeller on each one, put the whole thing on its side, like a drone, and went to have it lift up, well, if you want to elevate your identity, if one of those propellers goes out, that thing tilts into the wall. So conceptually, this is your identity. Now, when we look at shifting it, it's not supposed to be something where you change these things. Change is a heavy word, and I look at the concept of like shift as like just a small trajectory change will put you in a whole different direction, right? Seriously will, in the long run. So when I say shift, my job is to go in and say, let's see where all these sit right now. Let's figure out exactly what you have going on, which isn't always fun, but it's necessary. And then from there we go, okay, great. How do we shift it from this to this, which is the one that has everything you want? We'll go a little bit more, call it psychologically depth, right? I think a lot of people nowadays say, I gotta go get more books, get more things, consume. I call it shelf esteem.
Yeah.
I buy it, goes on the
one,
shelf.
man. Self-esteem and shelf-esteem.
Self-esteem, man. I feel good. I bought the book.
That's a good one.
It's on the shelf, man. And that's like 90% of people will do this and they'll actually get it and they won't do anything with it, but 10% will consume it. That's great. But then it goes on the shelf of the mind. And 1 to 3% take it off the shelf of the mind and put it into the world. So it's not an information thing. It's okay, why are you not that 1 to 3%? And I find it in the moments of life. Someone reads all that, does all that, now it's time to put it into motion. I gotta have that meeting, gotta call this team, I gotta make this sale, right? And you get to those moments, and I'll work with clients, and we'll get to the point of like, right, go do this thing, and then they didn't get it done. Well, why didn't you get it done? Oh, my wife did this, and my husband did this, and the kids said, I had this meeting pop up, I'm gonna do it next week, and so I pause them. I go, okay, great. We already talked about your big dream, right? We're working together. Yeah, we're doing that. We're gonna get, okay, great. The person who has that thing, would they make this same excuse and stop right now? And to a T, it's always like, no. Because the thing is, it's not the information, it's who you are with it. And when you shift to that new identity, you elevate how you operate as a human at an identity level, those don't even come to pass as stopping points. Like it won't even cross your mind to like my wife. So for me, if my wife and I have an argument, none of that affects my ability to show up as a coach or a parent. Like it's just, it would make no sense to my identity for that to happen. Where some people make it a complete reason as to why to shut down and go eat bonbons at home and not do anything. Well, this happened. And so it's like, man, like you're telling me you want this thing, but you aren't the person to have it just yet. All the tools, it's like giving a hammer to a baby,
right,
or give the hammer to a capable adult. All the tools, not the right identity to have it just yet.
I love what you're talking about with information, because as you were talking there, I was going through it in my head, and I was like, I know there was a time in my past where I would buy a book, and I had like no plans to read it.
You just bought it.
But my buddy would be like, oh my God, I just read this incredible book that was about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh God, I need that in my life right now, because it would say it was off, right?
Yeah.
And I remember like, I would make it like, oh, I gotta go right now to go to Barnes & Noble and buy this book right now. I go there and buy that book, and then I'm like, oh, well, that looks a good book too.
Yeah.
And I would buy this one, and I go home with like 9 books and would read none of them.
None.
But it gave me this sense of like, like almost
release.
like a quick release or endorphins of like, okay, I am making progress.
Yeah.
I read none of them. And then there was the times where I would actually, like you said, read the book, and think about it and like, oh, that was a really good book.
And
all right, see you later. And then I'm gone over here doing whatever it is, right? And then what you're talking about is, and I love this because it's very true. You talk about all the different ages that we kind of live in, if you will, in industrial age, an information age, and we at this point of our lives, we have information overload.
Yeah.
Like, dude, you can get any information you want.
Yeah,
it is out there, dude. Someone's written a book on it, did a video on it, a course on it, study on it. Like, it is all the information in the world. And what you're talking about is there's a difference between information, of how much information there is, and then, but what is that person actually doing to make that information work?
Yeah, execution of it all.
Execution of it. And to have the execution, am I saying this right? To have the execution of that information, is that going into identity shift?
It's it's a very intro piece of it.
Okay.
Because the thing is, just taking action doesn't make you become the person.
Because that's only one of the 6
It's one of, pieces. It's I'm taking an action towards it, right?
Okay.
But it's got to take place over time. It's got to take place with consistency. Because if you look at anybody, it's not this moment where I tried this thing, I learned it and did, and all of a sudden, look at me, I'm amazing.
Yeah.
It's a process that I call, it's what you create creates you. So there's a moment in football, 15 years old, when I actually became a better player.
Yeah.
And I went through this process every day of doing things that, like I said, was a great football player do. Who does this? He lifts weights, runs routes, catches footballs. And I took the action that was uncomfortable. People made fun of me, my teammates, why are you lifting weights, trucks? I knew what to do, but I wasn't doing it, but I started doing it. And the first time I did it, it was horrible. I was bad. I got made fun of, right?
Yeah.
And I kept doing it again, and I got made fun of. But after a while, the creation process is very arduous, ugly, and painful for anything. To create a statue, right? To build a business, it's arduous. But you don't get to the end and have done all that and not feel like that's who I am to make that. Well, the problem is a lot of people step out of that process too early. So they take the action. If they do take it, it's not just taken in one time. I got to become that. And here's like a kind of a simple metaphor, or think of it this way. The first time you try something, it's like a 10 of 10 of pain.
Okay.
I hate this, it's horrible, I don't feel good about this, right? It's the only path to your identity shift, though, is to get this done. So people step out of it. They make an excuse as to why it was so hard.
Right.
Then, okay, I'll go try it again, because most people, they won't do this. But the smart ones, they'll go, okay, I learned something, I'm going to try it again. It's a 9.75 out of 10. And most people are like, oh, I'm done. This is just, I can't keep doing this. It's masochistic to keep doing this. But the true successful people, they did it again. And again, because they kept taking a lesson, and they kept trying it again. And again, after a while, it went from a 10 to a 9 to an 8. It got down to 0. And most people think 0, painless. But it's not. 0 is actually joy. Okay. It's like a different level of like, look at me. It's pride, it's joy, and you actually identify as that now.
Okay.
And now if you identify as that, it doesn't matter what happens, you will do anything in that instinctual moment to align yourself with what you believe yourself to be. So where I'm talking about the identity shift, right, it is, the beginning is like, most people don't take the action. They don't take it because they're afraid of it, but after a while, there's not even a barrier of difficulty to take the action when it's your identity. And so my thing is, yes, we start out that way. We figure out what are these things, you consume it, now you do it, and it's difficult and scary. But what if I look at the concept of everything we're talking about is at this level of execution for success, whereas most people dream up here. So we're all dealing with this intro problem. We don't realize like the identity that's up here, this isn't even a stopping point. This roadblock doesn't exist. And when we can navigate the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 over time, understanding what it's going to become, you become more of this individual up here. And you get there and realize that level is really down here, and we just keep climbing, right? So the shift takes place in it's kind of like a simultaneous achievement transformation. Because the actions I'm taking were scary, but I achieved something. While I'm achieving, I feel better. And then I have a transformation. The transformation allows me to have the skill sets to, again, achieve. And it's a vicious cycle in a positive way, we'll call it.
And those two words were achievement and transformation. And those are kind of the two words that are...
It's like a twist, they're all twisted together.
Cycling in there, because achievement is when you're going through that process of a painful process of whatever it may be, right? Push yourself through business or sports or relationships or a marriage or parenting. And you start off and it feels like a 10, right? Like I'm literally sitting here thinking about, probably because of football, of running what we would call hills back then. And it's like, dude, the first time I was just puking and like asking myself, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing here? Yeah. Like, I could be outside with my friends right now hanging out at the swimming pool, and I'm running this freaking hill with a bunch of people and everybody's screaming at me. Like all the coaches are screaming. But then you just keep doing it, and it's just part of it. And before, it was in high school, before you graduated, it was like, oh, okay, it's hills, let's go to the hills. Like it was just part of what we were going to go do, and it was nothing, right?
Yeah, that's pride.
And that's where that transformation comes in, is what you're talking about, right? Achievement creates this transformation of like, oh, I can do this. I have pride in what I'm accomplishing here, which then transforms kind of who I am as a person.
Yes.
And then I achieve more and transform, achieve and transform.
Yeah, and that's definitely, we're in airy space. We're
way up high right now.
It's not super concrete. I totally understand that. And people are probably like, what? That's a lot to think about. Essentially, if you simplify it, it's like, yes, there's a person that doesn't take the actions, a person that does take the actions.
Yeah.
But you can't assume that taking it one time changes
will change you.
It's
Sure.
It's going to be something where you wake up months from now and go, I don't know exactly what time it took place or what day or what month, but I just feel different.
Yeah. You won't actually feel it like it hit in that one time that you did it.
Because you get into a flow, the ideas of being in a different rhythm.
Yeah.
And if you ask successful people, and I'll ask you, like, tell me back to a place when you were unsuccessful.
Yeah.
Like, who were you back then? And we'll go like, I've actually asked people this, I go like, I don't know, it's a different person.
Yeah.
I process different, thought different.
Yep.
You know,
You feel different, everything is different.
Yeah, so I noticed that as a red flag in a positive way, like, oh, so you're telling me like that at the end of the day, most people when they're successful, they're different people now. So where does that come into the rest? So I started backtracking and found like, oh, it's something we actually have all been doing.
Yeah.
The problem is we all do it through survival or just sheer will. I do it because, well, I got to be a better football player. Mom and dad want me to do it, or because I want this job. And no one sits back and says, okay, well, what if I actually charted to the direction of who I actually want to become, and I start choosing not just by, survival. Like I start choosing the things that are going to be my versions of hard, my executions that are difficult. Because when you start doing that, that's how you start becoming the person who actually has the things that you want. That's what I look at as like, I get you want something, great. What kind of person has that?
Yeah.
And we unpack it, okay, great. Where are you not congruent? Where must you make shifts?
Yeah.
And then we start working towards that. So it's a process we created called the shift method, which is actually in the book.
The shift method?
Shift method. That's my thing, man. We have dialed that in. It's battle tested. It's hard but fun.
Let me see this. As a human, right? Do you see any common denominators of like how many times people should shift, if you will? Is there a theme there?
I think anytime you have a vision above where you're currently at.
Okay.
Because let's be honest, there are some people who are comfortable on the couch.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that, and I'm not good with those people.
Sure.
Because I'm a person, I want to, like if there's a lifeguard, there's this metaphor of, I want to save the person who's swimming towards the shore. I'm swimming away, right?
Yeah.
So when I do this work, like it's designed for the person who's like, I want to do more, because what happens is, the method I use, it's see, shift, sustain. And if I see a part of me, which is like, I mean like Avatar see, like I see you know what I mean? The depths you don't want to see, then you know what to shift, to work on. And then when you sustain that over time, you start realizing there's more opportunity in someone, because you know what? I'm good here. Other person says, man, I want more. So if I want more, what's the next version of what I'm missing, and what do I have to see to be able to work on and shit? And that's the cycle. So when you ask me like, well, what's the number? Honestly, it's a matter of how high do you want to go? Because at certain points, people are content, and that's fine. But anytime you want something more and you feel a complete, I call an identity gap, a separation, that's the time to go back and say, okay, what am I not seeing that's giving me this space or filling this gap and this emptiness? And when I can see it now, I can start working around it. So there's no definitive.
Do you see that with the identity shifts that you're talking about? So if I understand what you just said, you would have as many, let's just use me as an example, I'd have as many shifts as really I wanted.
Yeah.
Because every time I'm trying to push to another level or expand my business or whatever it is, there's a shift that has to take place to get to that next level.
Has to.
You can't just keep staying down that same path. You're saying you got to shift and then, if you will, keep going forward.
Yeah.
If I understand that right, can you put it in boxes such as, do people have, I would assume therefore people have identity shifts, if you will, in business, in parenting, in relationships. 100%. They're all kind of separate shifts.
Yeah, there's
Is that
multiple
right?
identities for sure. The identity I have as a father is different than here, right? Different as a husband, different as a football coach. You have to. And it's all comprised of the same exact components, right?
Yeah, the process is the same, if you will.
The process is the same, the components make it up to the same too.
Yeah, but there's different threads, if you will, of parenting, and over here that you have to make a shift in parenting to grow. You have to make a shift in your relationship with your partner to grow, right? In business and so forth.
Yeah.
Am I saying kind of laying it all out? That's a
really good way of looking at it. Yes, yeah. Because the thing is each area. I mean, you may not want to work. Like I don't need to work heavily on being like a football coach.
Yeah.
There's an identity of me that will show up and coach my son's team.
Right.
But I'm not going to go to the depths of like behind the scenes, figure out what do I got to do to be the best there. But I feel good at where I'm at.
Right.
And I feel for the needs he has. Now, if I wanted to be his coach at the NFL level someday,
you got to keep
different progression.
Like for me, I wouldn't have to work on I wouldn't have to shift on looking good. Like I naturally look good.
You know what I'm saying?
So I don't have to shift that.
Sexy, bro.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I sit, I'm here. This is it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
got to shift.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I get it. Hey.
So yeah, so we all have our things,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
all
mine's
it is.
that, okay?
Same concept though.
Yeah, same concept, just a little bit different. Yeah, so I told you again, so you're saying like in life, again, go to your illustration of your kid's in, let's say football, he's playing at age 10 right now.
I don't got to do much.
Your knowledge, skill set, ability of coaching football at from the level that you came from to that, you feel very, very comfortable and fine. It's like I don't have to go push myself to become a better coach right now at 10-year-old level.
Yeah.
Where someone else actually could though. Someone else who maybe didn't come through football, to coach a 10-year-old son may actually have to make a shift. If they want to become a better coach for a kid right there, they could qualify to have a shift right there.
Yeah, and then if you
it
like
makes sense
take
though.
other
I see what you're
things
saying.
that connect to it, like let's say for example, like I tell people I'm in season of dad.
Okay.
Which my priority is fatherhood.
Okay.
The business stuff, I could legitimately look at like I know that I have gaps of where I want to be in the business. Part of me has said like, you know what, there's certain things I don't want to press into that I know would be opportunities. But based on where the connection point is, I don't want to diminish the identity of season of dad right now. That's a dad identity. And if something would damage it because I got to focus energy to shift this, I'm not doing it.
Do you help people? Obviously, there's a lot like kind of unpacking, right?
Yeah.
Do you help people through the training and so forth identify what the shifts kind of are in their lives? Like, do you go through and say, hey, let's break down this.
Yeah, we
let's
have
look at this.
Very specific process. We do something called roots and fruits.
Okay.
It's like this little unpacking of. I think we're all kind of like these trees, and I'm not going to go super deep into it, but yes, there's like a 10 segmented area of how I look at you and how we number things, and actually how we get to see them that you don't see.
Yeah.
There's a statement I love. It's you can't see the label when you're inside the jar.
Oh, that's a good one, dude.
So like most people don't even know what they got to. That's why the see phase is seeing certain things, and so we do go in and see it. It's not always pretty, but it usually is necessary.
Yeah,
but then you know what to work on. But the thing is, just because you see it doesn't mean you have to work on it.
True.
Yeah. You just know it's there and be
so
like,
you guys would like help, if it was me, you would help me identify through the roots and fruits process of identifying, hey, here's these different lanes, if you will.
Yeah.
Here's where you're at. This is actually where you're saying you want to be, but this is actually where you're at.
Yeah.
And then I, of course, can make the decision of should I shift this and move forward in life, or should I sit where I'm at and be comfortable, even if I am losing at it? I could still sit here if I wanted to.
100%.
So you guys actually have to break that down for all the different
actually,
people.
that's what I put in the book. So that was one that I love because it's the core of how we start with people.
Interesting.
So we actually break that all down, and then you work people through it. Yeah, it's. I think for me, it's not supposed to be all crazy and convoluted. Like it's, I try to make it when it comes to the actionable tactics of it simplistic. Yeah, it needs to be.
I know you talked about briefly, and I want to go through this with you just briefly because I want to get this out for the viewers. You talked about there's like 3 phases or high-level points maybe in the overall concept of it.
Yeah.
Can you just kind of give me the 3 little phases there?
Yeah, we just talked about it a moment ago, but we'll go. It's kind of make them super clear. So in order for someone to make a shift, most people will step into the shift phase. I'm going to start eating right and training this and do it, whatever they may be. And the problem is then we get to the point of if you climb a ladder, lean against the building, and you get to the top of the building and go, oh, ladder was leaned against the wrong building.
Okay.
That's why people get to the point of being burnt out and broken inside and broke because they did all this work, but they made no progress. Well, it's because you didn't work on your specific areas.
Okay.
You didn't see. So the first thing is always going to be a matter of like, you got to take a look and see. And the way that you have to see is not just a matter of look in the mirror and say, well, what's wrong with me? Because you won't even sometimes egotistically admit or give yourself permission.
Sure. No way.
So we always have to go in, and I call ego, EGO, everyone's greatest obstacle.
Okay.
It's that one thing that if it's in my way, man, I can't navigate past it because I'll protect the current identity.
Right.
So I have to have an ego death for you a little bit, and we figure out what you got to work on and see it, and then we can go into shifting. And
is seeing it phase 1?
Seeing phase 1.
And then shifting?
Let's put it this way, athlete. I'm an athlete, you're an athlete. So it's, you know, like you ever hear about people being in the zone? We're in the zone, right? So being in the zone is actual, like it's a state of an identity. It literally is. Some people just in that, anything they touch is Midas. I touch it, like you touch things, they turn to gold, right? It's not just what you know, but it's who you are with it. It just is, it's a flow, but if I dug into it. What we have is when you want to go to the next tier, that zone identity you want to get to, you have a lag. You got to find your zone lag. That's the C phase. Find my zone lag.
Interesting. Yeah.
Now that I have my zone lag, I need to do what's called a personalized shift plan. This has got to be targeting the things you've got to work on. Because if you go and borrow Sally's or Bob's, it's not going to work for you. You're not going to fill your lags. You'll just keep the lags. Once you've got those in place, the idea is sustain. Because the sustaining is what allows you to have that shift over time.
Okay.
And that's the big thing. And so if I'm able to actually see the zone lags, create a plan, and I call it a discipline system. Like if you have an actual disciplined system, not just I want to be disciplined, a life system that is, I'm talking down to the morning routines, what you do for the hours, that is a system in place that you get up in the morning and you're doing this thing because you know who you're trying to become.
Right.
And you're not thinking about it. Because every day when people get up, if I got to go, what do I got to do today? And think about it, too much mental energy.
Yeah, it won't.
My day should tell me what my identity, my zone identity I'm trying to create, should tell me who I got to be today. And my job is to show up and do the work in the moments. The more you do it, the more it becomes normalized, and the more I align with it, and the more I will eventually feel weird if I don't do that thing.
Yeah, it flips.
That's a special place.
Yeah.
Because the things, let's say the same things that got to build a business. If you struggle to do it every day, and I struggle to go to bed having not done it, I will win every time.
Right.
But it's who I am to do it now because I went through the process.
Yeah.
Those are the three big, so if you can get those figured out, what are my zone lags?
Yeah.
What's my personalized shift plan? And then what's my discipline system that's unique to me that allows me to flow through it? That's how you get to that next level.
On time, we're running out. I know you got tons of training. I got like 1,000 questions here for you. But again, if they want to know more about that, is it still better to go to the book website? Is it the best place to go?
If you want, you can definitely go to the book because that'll give you the baseline. But if someone's like a more like progressed human, we'll call it, like they've got like an extra level and they kind of get some of the stuff I'm talking about, the book will give you the basics.
Okay.
In our programs we coach through, we walk through all of it.
Okay.
So there's no guessing, there's no figuring out on your own, like we guide. So the method is it's extracted, it is dialed, it is detailed. And if they want that, you can just literally go to Anthony Trucks on Instagram and just DM us the word shift.
Okay.
Super
Just
simple.
your name, Anthony Trucks?
Anthony Trucks.
On Instagram.
Yeah, and DM the word shift.
And then just DM you the word shifts.
Shift.
Shift. No S.
Simple.
Shift.
Just shift, yeah.
And then your process takes place.
Takes
with
place.
them.
Our team
That's
talks
cool,
to
dude.
them. Yeah, it's a real simple. Because the one thing for me is like I want to be human.
Yeah.
I don't want people to feel like it's this, and it's more of the integrity thing.
Sure.
It may be a weird part of me, but I do what I do for humans.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's individuals that get into this space and it's like it's just a business.
Right.
And if it's just a business, then you might need to separate it. But I show up on the cover of my book and on my social because I actually have a heart for the humans.
Yeah.
So on my processes, I like to make sure are human.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. And again, I'm gonna go back to I love those core values you have because I guess one of them is kind of you're talking about right there is that human element, human touch. I think it's super relevant in your life that you like it a lot. On time, I'm gonna go to the money is kind of question here. So we got a great picture of you here. I had my team Photoshop it to make you look good. And they did a great job. You see that?
I almost look as good as you. Almost. Close.
So look, man, I want you to fill this out. You've gone through so much of all the stuff you've gone through, and now you're in the business side of everything as well with Identity Shift. Fill this out and sign it right here.
All right.
Form right here, and then I want me and you can talk about it.
All right, let's do it.
Together. Let me give you the Sharpie here.
Beautiful.
There you go.
All right. Did anybody ever misspell it?
Oh yeah, happens all the time. Surprisingly, happens all the time. We have a cleaning routine in case someone does.
I actually, I won the spelling bee when I was in 4th grade over all the 6th graders, so I can spell well.
Wow.
It's an odd thing.
Man, you're kind of like multi-talented, dude.
I got a lot of work. I'm a handyman too,
Sports.
bro. I'll fix a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, you're a handyman
when
too.
When you grow up poor, I couldn't hire people to fix things.
You had to go figure it out.
I'll code websites. I used to have like a side business that got me in trouble, but I used to install car stereos.
Wow.
I had a business idea to open something called Trucks' Trunks. But yeah, dude, I am a weird, I do a lot of odd stuff.
It's the identity shifts that you go through.
Yeah, I just try things. I think life's supposed to be experienced, man, so I experience things.
Oh, this is a good one. I think this is, I'm 99%, 100% sure this is the first time anybody's ever used this word.
Really?
And that's what I get most excited about, is like a new word that someone uses. You see my wall as you walk in.
Yeah, I did
with all
see
the
it.
answers. So here we go, Anthony Trucks. Money is a facilitator.
Yeah.
A facilitator. I don't think anybody, I'm almost 100% sure, no one has used that word right there. What do you mean by money is a facilitator? What does that mean?
I think growing up we didn't have money, right? So
Okay.
I wanted money, and then you get money, and then you realize like, oh, it's not this thing that solves all problems. It can remove some stress, but I found like for me, I love the human relationships I have. I love the freedom that I have. I love the impact I get to make on the foster youth. So it facilitates the things my heart wants to do. So if I want to take my kids on trips or buy something nice for my wife or do nothing for the next week, right? Because I have it, it facilitates the ability for me to have a space of control in my life. And so it's facilitated good things, it's facilitated bad things.
Yeah.
But I think for me it's an ability to create certain things in life. So yeah.
Yeah, so money, in your viewpoint there, money is a facilitator, saying that money has the ability for you to use money to facilitate a trip with your kid, which you're doing literally right now, right?
Yes.
With having the money, it's giving you the ability to facilitate this trip because you have the money. Exactly. If you don't have the money, the trip with your son, who's sitting in the stands right behind us right here, just wouldn't be there.
Wouldn't be there. I would have to be at work doing something, or I would be stressed off of money coming in and going. Like, it's just there's a lot that goes on if you don't have it, and you don't. I think if you get it and don't facilitate it properly, steward it properly, also, like, it becomes a stressful thing, because it's a hunger just to have it.
And the lack of it facilitates
stress.
The opposite of what you're doing now. I would go back to your childhood for a second, right? You grew up in the poor family. The lack of the money facilitated not being able to, or have the food, right? Having to chase the chicken, whatever it was. On both sides of it, money's gonna have the ability to facilitate the good or the bad there. And then I think the last point you made is a very, very crucial point, which is it's also about the facilitator of it, right?
Yeah.
It's what you do with that money. Also is extremely important of how you facilitate that money that's there, right? You can facilitate it for good, or you can facilitate it for bad.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, when I look at identity stuff, it also helps you facilitate your identity.
Same way.
So do I want to invest in books or beer? Do I want to invest in the relationships, or do I want to invest in a Ferrari? Like, what are the things? And it will facilitate who I will become. Because the unique thing about identity is it's just a return investment.
Interesting.
If you think about the return I have on the investment of time and energy and effort, the return is my identity. And so it's no different in terms of whether it's money or time or energy. It's I'm facilitating who I am. And if I can facilitate, like, I am a good dad in my heart, because I can facilitate an experience or a trip with my son, right? So again, it facilitates the thing that in turn creates me.
I love it, man. Man, there's so much to unpack with you here, dude. You got so much knowledge and depth of that knowledge, It's one thing to just talk about it from a high standpoint, but it's like I feel like I could go dive really, really deep with you right now and have you break all this stuff down for me. I'm sure the viewers feel the same way as well. So again, Anthony Trucks on Instagram, DM you on Shift.
DM me Shift.
On that right there. And of course the book itself, Identity Shift Book. Books.com, right? IdentityShiftBook.com. They go to get a free copy using the code MIS as their code there. Anthony's, man, it's been an absolute privilege of mine to have you on the show and to spend time in the office. I truly have enjoyed it, man. And again, I just feel like there's certain people that just have this super good. I'm around people nonstop every single day. Like, my office is a carousel of freaking people, man. And people fly in almost every single day of the week. Fly into my office to sit down and we go through business, and there's certain people that just have a natural goodness, like human goodness about them, and I'm telling you, you're one of those people, man. Like, you have this true sincerity and goodness about you, and it's actually an incredible testimony from where how you came up, and I think it also proves to my point of why I believe so much in your brand of Identity Shift, because you're a living freaking example of what that really is. So awesome journey, man. So happy to have you on the show. For you guys watching, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Money Is Show. We'll see you next week on The Money Is Show.